Long ago is it since a picture like this would have been either abhorred or ridiculed. But today, the education of small children in methods of self-preservation is recognized as a humane proceeding.
U.S. citizen returning to the United States in the previous 14 days will be subject to up to 14 days of mandatory quarantine.
Welcome, everyone, to the Quarantine Call-In Show. My name is Laura Grant, and I'm here with the crew, Timothy Lovett, Kim DeShields, Lauren Kalane. I have problems with the endings of names. I don't know why. But do you go by Swirls or do you go by Lauren? What do you go by?
I'll answer to Swirls. I don't go by Squirrels. And I just realized how big the difference is.
Yeah, it's your street name. Is that your street name or that's...
Her street name, her Greenfield street name.
Gangsta.
And of course, we have our very special guest tonight, Jupiter, S.L.U.T, or other ways pronounced, S.L.U.T. We can refer to her as Jupiter now because I've been told that that's what I can do. Welcome, Jupiter. It's hard to categorize. You know, we had our little pre-production meeting where I get to know guests and talk to them for a little while, try to figure out what we're going to talk about. And, you know, Jupiter is a writer, she's an educator, and she's also an advocate for sex positivity, I believe, and probably about 1,200 other things too. And I don't think I can adequately describe you. I know Jupiter wrote the book Masturbation Mondays, and that's available on Amazon, and I am reading it right now. Not literally, but like when I get off of here. But Jupiter, why don't you tell us about yourself, please?
Well, hello, and I'm so happy to be here with everybody. Like the rest of the world, I've been a little caged in, and I couldn't even decide how to approach being here today. I was like, do I show them my best foot forward and, you know, how I'm really bringing my all to being here despite the difficult circumstances, or do I show them that, you know, for all of us, it's a shit show, right? I've got my messy bun. I didn't sleep well last night. My nails are starting to grow out embarrassingly, and I've got sweaty armpits. I don't know if you can see that real good, but those are some pretty sweaty armpits. So I decided to go ahead and go with both. And I think that kind of sums up what I do. I find the problems in my life and I solve them in really small ways. And I share that with others to help them either find joy, heal hurt, or shed shame. So I'm here to just kind of tackle being here. I love Tim's work, and I want to say thank you to all these amazing women on the screen whose work I've gotten to be in the audience for at different times. And so I'm just here to have fun, answer some great questions. And I'm one of the few people on earth that you can ask pretty much anything about sex of.
Great. Well,
Nice.
I was wondering about that thing with the makeup on one side. I thought it was just me, but so you did prepare yourself this way to show us both sides, right?
Yeah,
Very,
pretty much.
very
Like,
creative.
you know, I'm going to be bringing the joy, but I also don't want to like diminish how hard this is and how sad a lot of people are and how isolated we feel. And yet, like, I'm so grateful we're all together, right? But I don't want to diminish like how much pain there is right now in the world. So I'm just like bringing it both.
Great. Wow. Awesome.
Yes,
So,
that is awesome.
yeah.
I didn't even know. I had to turn my glasses up on high to see all that. God.
I did too. I was like, what? I miss everything.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, what would you like to start with today? What would you like to talk about first?
Oh, well, I've mentioned that I like to do improv, so I will go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. My mother said to pick the very best one, and you are it. Okay, I just put some things around me to talk about just because I like to.
Okay.
This is a t-shirt I designed.
What does it say?
It says, strong, flexible, feminine. I'm a total pussy.
That's very cute.
And
Very.
I designed that t-shirt after working in Springfield in education for a long time and getting tired of listening to my male colleagues call young men pussies in a derogatory term. And the year after year hearing little boys insulted by being called pussies, no matter how many times and nicely I, tried to give some positive, constructive feedback to my colleagues, eventually I just started like realizing how wrong it is to think of a pussy as weak or insulting. Like the female human anatomy is like just so dynamic and so much showing us the strength and flexibility. So eventually that frustration over several years translated into this t-shirt, which I wore the very first time I went to the Adult Video Network conference in Vegas. So I have I've walked the red carpet at AVN in Vegas, and the day before that I was wearing this shirt. So conversation starter.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine what were people coming up and saying to you at this point?
Well, if you go to a porn awards show and you're just wearing a pink t-shirt with small writing, you really don't stand up much. Like, I actually had to go a little bit bigger or go home kind of things to get attention. I had to actually put on a vagina hat. So I had my hair wound through the vulva around the back. And then I would make people guess what this represented. And a lot of them got the vagina, but nobody got that my hair sticking through was my golden shower.
Wow.
But it did. That got me a little attention. The t-shirt, not so much. Too tame for that audience, right?
Wow.
God, I was called a pussy like last week.
You were called a what?
Someone called me a pussy like 7 days ago.
It'd be like, thank you. That's right. Pussy here.
I like your energy. I like your spirit. Wow. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what you're doing on Pornhub? Or you did? You're not doing it right now, right? This is something that you were doing.
Yeah. So I really was very, very scared of the word porn. And I have a strong academic background, and I'm a very serious thinker, though I don't see the point of life if you're not bringing the joy to it. So that's often something people get after they've spent time with me. But I was raised by a father who had some really strict religious beliefs. And my church directly educated that masturbation would make you a selfish lover, and it would make you wrong-headed about what making love was about, and that it was only about giving pleasure. And so I internalized that receiving pleasure or having pleasure was like anathema to God. And that was really, there were very many parallel messages in society at large outside of the church that kind of show women that they're really meant as a vehicle for pleasing men and not for themselves. So after my 15-year marriage ended, I just was really shocked to find that I still had all this shame around masturbation. I thought I'd grown up, and I really just had baggage kind of in the closet waiting to come out. So as a writer, I decided, oh my gosh, I'm a big fan of A.J. Jacobs, who wrote Living Biblically for a Year. And I'm a big fan of this woman's work, even though I never even read the book, called Nickeled and Dimed, where this woman, so I like exposés or thought projects. So I decided to do a thought project as preparation for writing a book on my sexual shame. So I decided to film myself masturbating once a week for a year. And I really this is video research. That's it. And about 6 months in, people started telling me things that I was their favorite porn star. And I was like, yeah, but I don't do that. Porn is just for that. I had so much shame, I couldn't even stand the word. And I had to really dig deep and realize that was just yet another layer of things I needed to let go of. And that I just didn't want to be associated with bad sexuality, and that I really needed to go to a place where I don't believe there's such a thing as bad sexuality. I do think there is such a thing as people getting hurt, and you can get hurt in sexual ways and non-sexual ways. But So I now do talk about porn in a really positive way, because I realized that was just another layer of sexual shame for me. So when I finished the project, people wanted to be able to see that kind of stuff, and it actually costs a lot of money to stream porn videos. It was costing me a lot of money to host them on my own website. So I threw a few up on Pornhub, just so people can, for free, see my work. Just a sample, like about a half dozen out of maybe, well, a lot more than 52 videos, because I.
Wow.
So.
And now you've told me there's something very different about your work that you put up on Pornhub, and that you sort of have a different approach than many. And do you want to talk about that at all?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, because I didn't set out to make porn, but undeniably, videos of me masturbating are pornographic. So, but I set out to kind of learn about my own shame, and I set out to learn about what was stopping me from having orgasms, what was making me feel so bad, and also how could I predictably have orgasms. I was really jealous of men who seem to know how to do that predictably, and so those were kind of my thoughts going into it. And oh no, I forgot the question. Somebody remind me of the question.
Yeah.
We were so engrossed, we don't even remember.
I know, right?
Being distracted by Joe. Hi, Joe. I'm so excited to see you. I've missed you. It's so fun that I did know so many people here.
Yeah, people
Question.
like you. People like
Oh, you were asking about what's different about my masturbation videos, or what's different about my porn.
Yeah. That's
So
right.
I really came at it with like wanting to learn and coming from a place of trying to enrich myself. And I didn't use those words yet, but I was really investigating female pleasure as defined by this female. And so most of the porn that I see is looked at, is intended to titillate the male gaze. So that's one thing that I didn't have the vocabulary at the time, but now I say it sets my work apart, is that it's designed to titillate my own gaze, because my goal was to aesthetically and please myself. The other thing is that I was bringing a lot of shame and uncomfortable feelings around sexuality to it. So I would have to kind of work through whatever feelings that I was feeling in the moment. So if I was feeling really fat, I'd have to get over that before I could get to a place where I could have an orgasm. And I could only do that by jiggling my fat until I was bored of it or whatever. And then that would all be in the video, and I'd time splice it in, because I was trying to document my my struggle with my own shame, and also my progress towards pleasure. So that ends up looking to other people really funny. And I would often get comments of, how is it that I am laughing so hard and totally have a stiffy at the same time? That was a very common kind of question that my work elicits.
So I have a question. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the actual book? And it was like Monday. It's called Masturbation Monday. Now was Monday your designated day for masturbation?
That was my designated posting day.
Okay.
So sometimes I filmed on a Tuesday. Sometimes I filmed on Sunday night and, edited and did everything short. I am a mom. My daughter actually just came home from college. I just finished. I sent her off, but my daughter's home now. But at the time, she was a high school student and things. So I'd have to film around the whole rest of my life, And so my posting deadline was Monday.
Wait, so how does your daughter feel about you posting pornography?
So at first, like everybody else, I had no idea how to approach her with it. But to be able to do the editing, I had to buy a new Mac. And of course, she wanted to get on it. And so I ended up having to be honest very quickly and saying, well, you can't get on my computer. Because she was going to try to get on it unless I gave her a good enough reason. So I gave her the honest truth. I said, there's naked pictures of me and sexually explicit material because I'm starting this research project. And at this point, she is proud as could be. And one of the last chapters in here was her enlisting my mother to get me this little like teeny vibrator on a necklace for Christmas because it was above her budget. But so my daughter and my mother, the two generations of my life, sandwiched their energy together to give me this beautiful gift. It actually, yeah. So I'm really, really blessed when it comes to female family support around sexuality.
Right, because you said that your mother told you to masturbate in the first place when you weren't being sexually satisfied by your husband, right?
Actually, it was before I got married. It was when I'd had sex for the first couple of times, but then I wasn't in a relationship yet. And so I was not sure what to do with all these raging hormones and not being in a relationship and not wanting to jump into the next one. And she recommended that I masturbate, and I couldn't. So she was very much, my church and my dad's messaging was counteracted by my mom. But even though I rationally knew that what my mom was saying was okay, my emotions couldn't get behind it, and I struggled.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, so were you just masturbating one time a week? That was it?
For me, that was a lot. The year that I was writing this, I was going through a divorce. And if I hadn't been having that assignment of a whole once a week, I probably would have done it once in that entire year, which would have been so sad. I had no idea what a huge gift I was giving myself because I had no idea how painful the coming year was about to be.
Wow.
The coming year.
At that time, which was several years ago now. But at the time now, I was about to have a shit show of a year, and I would have had a much, much worse year had I not had that commitment to at least that little bit of regular joy in my life.
It was interesting that you said, because I think church kind of, made me ashamed of a lot of things. And so, that was tough to overcome that. How about you? It was same?
I'm still working on it.
Okay.
I went to church locally not too long ago. It was the first time in decades, and it was one of the scariest things I've ever done. But I knew I needed to do some forgiving, and I couldn't do that without kind of revisiting some of the most painful places in my past, which for me has been church. I spoke in Scotland this past year, and I met a woman, actually, I think from Georgia there, and she was like, "You have church hurt." And I was like, I'm going to use that phrase. That's apt. I have church hurt.
I think it made me sexually repressed. That just does feel that way.
Definitely for me too. But I also know a lot of people who are sexually repressed, even not in the church. So that message is more broadly available for anybody ready to be sexually oppressed. You can find that message anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Very good point.
Wow. This is so riveting. Oh my God.
I've got hair in my face. Sorry.
So had you ever written a book before you decided to turn this research project into something to share?
Yeah, I was one of those kids where my older, super responsible sister would come home and be like, "It's really admirable that you're writing in your diary, but you need to do your homework first." And I'd be like, "Uh-huh." And then I just go back to my diary. So I self-published a book of poetry for my high school project in high school. And I have a master's in creative writing. I volunteered to do a thesis in economics in my undergrad at Smith, largely just because I wanted to prove to myself that I could. And throughout writing this book, I would remind myself that I gave birth to my daughter without pain meds, and that I finished that damned thesis. And those were the things that, when this project felt impossible, got me through. Like the little engine, like, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Oh, Laura, you're muted. So we can't hear you yet, Laura.
I know. There you go. Thanks. I'm still technologically working up to this. So can you talk a little bit about your last name and how you came to own that, S.L.U.T?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I was actually a virgin when I really seriously started feeling guilty for having such slutty behavior. I enjoyed making out with these guys when I was like 16 so much that I was like, holy shit, I'm a slut. Like, How ironic. So I knew there was this huge irony that I was still a virgin, and yet I really deeply felt that I was a slut, and I felt pretty ashamed of really liking the sexual attention that I got. Even just the private attention with, on a date or whatever, making out as a teenager. So after my divorce, after 15 years plus of marriage, I was just doing what one does when one decides they're going to start writing erotic poetry, which for me is how this started. Anonymous writing of poetry, erotic poetry. And so I was just looking for a domain name. And I was typing in every little thing, and everything was taken. And then the one that stuck, the one that was available, was Jupiter Slut.
I have such questions. I want to see your birth chart. I want to see if you bet you have an angular Jupiter. I bet it's exalted and
Oh my goodness.
sad.
Scorpio rising.
Here we go.
Moon in Capricorn.
No,
Intersect.
tell me your Jupiter.
But I don't remember where that one is. I can tell you, though, I have almost a planet in every single house. I have an extremely spread chart, an unusually spread chart. But when later people would ask, well, your Jupiter is slut. Who's Jupiter? Who owns you? So this would be kind of like a kinky question at sex conferences and things. And I would think, oh, am I ever going to meet a man who's going to be my Jupiter and I'll be his slut? This is early on, when I was still just writing the erotic poetry, several years before this book idea came into being. And eventually I realized, especially actually through writing this book, that I'm my own slut. I want to own my own sexual energy. And certainly when I used to teach in Springfield, one of the things I had found is that, this one of my students, this beautiful young woman, she didn't put the basketball away at the end of PE the way the boy wanted her to. So he called her a slut, right? It's just a way to make women cry, right? If you say, no, I don't want to have sex with you, some guy will be like, I know you had sex with him. You're a slut. You had sex with him, not me. Or, so it doesn't matter whether you're having sex or not having sex. People will still call you a slut. So for me, being shameless about whatever is true for you, which is a really luminous state, and being untamed in what your truth is. So for me, sometimes for me, it's really slutty sometimes to say yes to sex. And sometimes it's really slutty to say no to sex, but I'm trying to always just stay true to whatever is true at that moment for me. So that's my commitment to being a slut.
I see. So Joe is asking, where can we get copies of your book?
Amazon. So you can get
Amazon.
print. Woohoo! Or you can get Kindle version. This is kind of a commitment to have on your bookshelf. And if you're like a Prime member, I think you can even read it for free on Kindle, and I still get royalties whether or not you buy it. So go for it.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
awesome.
what I've been doing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wait,
Although
so is the message that, go ahead, Lauren. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Kim. It's all right.
So is the message that it's okay to be a slut?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's your interpretation of what that is.
Yeah. And it's also okay to not be okay with being a slut. I spent a lot of years struggling to accept it. That's okay too. And if you want to, but I absolutely encourage people, from my own experience, it's so much better to feel good about any behavior that you have. And so I highly encourage people to embrace the term slut, but some people don't want to. And I also I support women's rights to use whatever words for their sexuality work for them.
I think a lot of women secretly would like to be more, I don't want to say promiscuous, just more adventurous and just do whatever, with whomever. But there's that stigma, and they don't,
No, that's just you, Kim. Sorry.
What did you say?
I said it's just you. It's just you. Your friend. Your friend. It's your friend. Sorry.
Before this project, I really thought it was just stigma, but I have actually lived through a lot of backlash. So there are really rational reasons why women don't embrace more adventurous sexuality, because the social prices that we pay are still pretty real, and you don't know what they are until you're paying them yourself. So I say, be gentle with yourself. If you want to have more adventure, try a little one, try a little bite of adventure and see how it goes down. And that way you can adjust and grow, as opposed to have a trauma or something.
See, Bonnie, taste the rainbow. All right, but I do want to bring it back to let's talk about your book, okay? So it's about you masturbating 52 times, to make this book happen, right? So all of them, I'm just guessing that all of your sessions were not the same. So you're talking about wild and adventure. What is like, give us some wild and adventurous stories you had, putting into this book. Like, what did you do to keep yourself excited? Masturbating.
Who did you think about?
Like
These
what
are
did
great
you do?
questions.
What did you do? I mean, let's talk about the book. That's why we're here, Masturbation Monday. You
Oh,
wrote-
I thought we were here to like just cheer people up who are stuck home alone. But yeah,
well, we
we're all
are.
home alone masturbating,
Yeah,
right?
Tim.
So, okay. What do you want? Most embarrassing moment, hottest thing to this date that I think that I did. Give me a category because 52 is kind of a lot,
Well, I want to know the wildest thing. I mean, I'm saying I want to know the wildest thing. Like, what is the most?
Tim's going to keep replaying this tonight. So
I'm
make
going-
it good.
Practicing
Wants
it.
to see
He's
most
recording it.
embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's going to commit
Here.
battery to his dick later.
So there wasn't time to talk about 52 in here. So I pulled 12 out in here.
Okay.
And I tried to pull the ones that I thought for me personally, I was most proud of because I felt like I made progress in my shame, or most sad about because I felt I made the least progress. But basically, if it had emotional resonance, I chose 12, one per month, as opposed to trying to talk about all 52. But for me, the first big, most embarrassing one was after I got done filming. So I tried not to like overthink how I looked on camera, but I still thought a lot about it. But one day in particular, I was being really successful about like not over controlling the angles and trying to be too perfectionist and just being honest about the rawness of sexuality. And then when I was editing, I found I had a vagina boogie. And it was like right in the footage, and it was like going all over the place. And like, I was like, oh no, I'm so embarrassed. Now, how?
Wait.
A vagina boogie. I'm gonna use that in a sentence tonight.
Wait. Is that like no, I think I know what that is, but
But what is it? Tell me, goddammit. I don't know.
like a little piece of maybe, I don't know, secretion that congealed, like
Yeah.
Like a yeast infection congealing or more loose?
I didn't have a yeast infection, but just kind of like a little glob of something
Okay.
that had
Little
been
mucus.
visible and going.
asked.
I'm doing my rubbing and it's going all over the place, totally distracting. It was the most embarrassing thing in the world. So I wanted to edit it in such a way that both was honest that it existed, and two, covered it up, because I also want to be honest about the fact that I'm a real woman who really does feel embarrassed, right? So how do I be honest in both ways? So I decided to show it a little bit, but then I turned a filter on that made it look like an alien, like the X-ray. So everything turned purple and blue, and for the most part, that was obfuscated. So I showed it a little, and then I hid it most of the time. But it ended up being really funny because I usually didn't, in the edited video, I never usually shared my fantasy, but I had happened to be having a space fantasy where I was having sex with aliens. So I decided to like go with that as a theme. And then like I spliced in like a silent film, like little things about having sex with space aliens. And like, I just tied the correction on that vagina boogie into the overall fantasy and ended up sharing a whole nother layer visually with the edited product that I would have kept completely invisible had it not been for the happy accident of the very, very embarrassing vagina boogie.
The vagina boogie. So with that, we're gonna open the room. I'm pretty sure that nothing you ask will be unacceptable. So go right ahead and let's open up the room, and just do me a favor, when you're not talking, turn off your mic so that we can minimize the amount of audio sound that goes through the system. Okay, so let's hear it. First of all, we've got Sandra, my friend Sandra, we got my friend Denise here, and we got Tammy in the house, and of course Joe is here too. So Lauren has left us momentarily, probably to get some
Laura,
more
you got a lot of black friends, Laura.
What can I say?
She's invited to the cookout. It's okay.
She sure is, man. You gotta
You know
pass
how I
that.
roll.
Absolutely.
Oh, all right. So anyway, so now we've gotten past that. What you guys have for questions for Jupiter?
I feel so excited that you're so open about this. Like, I am totally ashamed of my shit. I hide it.
Mm.
Not to me. I'd be like, bone it, please.
Now we have a new word to use, vagina boogie.
Vagina boogie, right?
Yeah.
This is my vagina boogie now. It's a dance step.
It's a dance step.
The vagina
But
I
it
boogie.
could
don't
also
ever
be
wanna have
associated
one,
with a
damn.
space fantasy.
So
So
let me
I'm
just
going
ask,
through my Saturn return, all right? And I feel like I'm the opposite. Like the book I would write this year is Saturn Slut, which is just like not. But you have this great the theme of generosity with yourself and forgiveness is very Jupiterian, definitely.
Saturn Slut actually was my first idea because I was going through my Saturn return also, but it was
Ah.
too sibilant. I used to review audiobooks professionally and I was like, oh, it's too many S's, too sibilant. So I tried Jupiter Slut. And also, yeah, I ended up.
So it just found you, like it wasn't like calculated, but it's much more appropriate.
So I guess the
Definitely.
question I want to get to, because I mean,
Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
yeah, why you yelling at me?
I'm saying, damn.
You know,
We gotta mute you for a little bit.
right, we got to, yeah, because I'm in the middle of a question right now.
Yeah.
So, the question I want to know is, me and you, you gotta mute your mic.
Yeah.
You gotta mute your mic,
You
folks.
gotta
Yeah.
mute your mic when someone else is talking, okay? You got it, Ernst?
Okay. You gotta mute it. Okay, there you go. Good job. Good job. We originally met at a writing conference. You know what I mean? And I just wanted to make a comment that, I didn't read the full book because, I work a lot, but I actually, read some excerpts out of it, some pieces out of it. And I must say that it was well written. I mean, it's very, it's easy to read, but it's intriguing. So, and I was like, okay, so I might have to check it out. But, I'm to tell you straight up, I ain't gonna wait till Monday to masturbate. I got things I got to do. I got a schedule to keep.
You've only got to upload it on Monday, Tim.
I'm gonna upload. All right. No, I'm
God. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Do you feel like if you do it a lot, do you feel like that you're sort of like letting go of some of your life force? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how much is too much?
Good
That's
question.
such a good question. Yeah. It is really funny for me that I do feel it's actually for me pretty different. So like in a course of a couple of days, I could masturbate or just have sex and orgasms a lot. And then I could go for a really long dry spell, and that it's less important. It's not like there's a perfect thing like a calorie count, like, gee, my life is best when I have 3 orgasms every single week and keep it the same. My life personally is the best when I follow the rhythms. And for people who study like calories and things, they often find actually that, if you keep the exact same caloric intake exactly the same every single day, it's not as good for you as if sometimes you spike and sometimes you dip. Like there's fluctuation as a natural part of existing. And so I find that staying true with what I desire usually keeps me in the best kind of relationship to being stable. So if I try not to worry about it if I go a long time without having the energy to get all the way to orgasm. Sometimes it's kind of hard. And through this project, I kind of became my own sexual superhero, but I also got to meet other ones. And one of mine is a porn star who lives in California, and I'm blanking on her name right now.
Janet Jackman?
No.
Heather Hunter?
No.
Jenna Jameson.
No, she's older than that. She's she was bigger in the 80s. I will think of her name and then I'll blurt it out later. But she said to me one day, she was like, I don't have to always have an orgasm anymore. Sometimes the kind of sexual energy I need is just to touch myself a little and just have a little bit of pleasure without going all the way to climax. And for me, that just really drained away a lot of the expectation that I was still putting on myself, because I always felt like I was a failure if I didn't reach like a full orgasm. But sometimes for me, my God, my hand and my wrist had hurt by the time I got there, because it was, for me, it can sometimes be a lot of work, especially if I'm fighting myself, right? I think I should this, I think I should that, you know. So getting rid of the shoulds helps me stay the most in balance with my sexuality.
Okay, so is it a hand job or are you using objects?
Well, at first it was always by hand because I was too sexually suppressed to own sex toys. Now I can hardly fit them into my suitcases that I use for storage. I find a Hitachi wand works really well for me, but I usually have a lower quality, but it's more consistent and I come quicker. So my Hitachi is my lazy girl thing. And if I want to treat myself really nice and romance myself, I do it the old-fashioned manual way.
So the comedian Nikki Glazer has been pushing something called the womanizer. Are you familiar with the womanizer?
I've heard of it, but I just don't have a budget to like try a lot of those things. But I do know a lot of people who are professional toy reviewers and stuff. It's the kind of people you meet when you go to porn conventions. Mm-hmm. So I know that there's going to be some great like unboxing videos and reviews of that, but I personally haven't tried it. No. Okay. And my porn star friend who told me that she doesn't always choose to go to orgasm is Nina Hartley. And Nina Hartley, she is just such an amazing woman and human being. So I just want to give credit to her for, helping me shed yet another layer of shame.
So where have you been, like in promoting this book? I know you've done a lot. I follow you on Twitter. So I'm saying, I know you've done a lot. So why don't you explain, tell us what you've done in promotion and things like that.
So I spoke at the Woodhull Sexual Freedom Conference in Washington, D.C. I put together a couple panels there. One called Sexy Conundrums. And it was like, as a feminist in porn, how do you deal with the contradiction there? Because there's so much in porn that is misogynistic. And so I had there was three of us women who all produce porn. Jessica Drake and I'm blanking on another name, and she's also one of my heroes. Jet Setting Jasmine and myself were the three panelists tackling that topic. And that's actually still available. That whole hour-long panel is available on Facebook Live on the Woodhull Sexual Freedom Conference website, even though it was a couple years ago. And then Catalyst Con in Los Angeles. I always have my book out for sale now whenever I do events. Most recently, I spoke in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and I was speaking on internalized misogyny in how I experienced the urge to diminish myself when going to the gym so that I don't distract men around me. So I gave a talk on a very non-sexual experience, or not overtly sexual experience of internalized misogyny. But then my book was for sale on the back table, right? So I promote it in different ways. Oh, Tim, you look so confused. Like you've got.
I do, because I'm like, what did you just say? So you don't distract the men around. What's that mean? Like at the gym, you.
What does that mean?
What kind of exercises is you doing?
So when the church I was raised in, it was the 90s, and so we wore really, really big baggy clothes in Seattle, the Nirvana era. And I would wear a flannel knotted and tied up under my boobs and have a couple of inches of bare midriff showing before my big baggy jeans. And my dad, one day, I remember him telling me, you don't know the thoughts you're putting into men's head by letting them see your skin. Oh, so God. His argument was that it was my job to dress modestly to keep, because I don't know how hard it is for men to keep their minds clean. So he literally made it my responsibility to keep, godly thoughts for every man I ever meet. It's my job to keep their mind clean. So my joke in that speech is there's not enough bleach in the world. Right? And how can you put that burden on a teenage girl to babysit the minds of men? I mean, it's insane. But yet what I find is that kind of message was so internalized that here I am at my new gym in Holyoke, and I'm already written this book. I'm already sex positive, and I go in and I'm just wearing normal yoga clothes. But when I go into a forward bend, all of a sudden I freeze in this like, oh no, are the men getting a view of my camel through my yoga pants? You know, am I distracting them? Am I causing them to have less of a good workout experience? Am I a burden for just existing and being a sexual distraction and harming men just by being attractive? Like maybe I should go in a burqa, kind of to the, you know, that would be an extreme, but that's the kind of the way I was raised to think about myself. So I just had that moment of like freezing up at the gym, and like no man ever has that experience at the gym, right? So unless I told you this story, you would never dream that I carry that kind of emotional baggage just trying to do a forward bend in a co-ed gym.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I have posted links to your book on all of on this show page, and especially in the Zoom session that's going on right now. So if people are looking at Facebook Live, they can just click on the link and they can purchase your book. So there we have it. Wow. I know I lost a question. I don't know if you
I
can
have
see
one.
it, Tim, but yeah.
Okay, so like, what are the misconceptions around masturbation? Like, I think one you mentioned in the beginning was that if you masturbate too much, is it going to affect your sex life? Like, what, are you going to go blind? Like, what, you know, those kind of things.
There are so many. There are so many. Let's see. So, you know, I could talk about ones I have, or ones that other people have.
Does it desensitize you for, you know, when you are intimate with a man? Like, is any of that valid or true?
So what I have found is that for me, it's made me have a sexual agenda for the first time in my life. You know, in sex ed when I was a kid, we just really learned to not get pregnant. It was the very beginning of the awareness of HIV and AIDS. So then it was like, and use a condom for a second reason too, but it was really still focused on anti-pregnancy education. And so where was I going to learn about sex? I learned about sex by handing my body over for short periods of time to whoever I was dating and watching what they did to me. Sex remained what men did to me until about a year and a half after I wrote this book. Because after I wrote this book, where I literally I had to like watch videos of like, okay, but like what pleases me? What gives me pleasure? What are the things I don't want to admit? Like I studied this intensely for over a year. And then when I started being sexual again with men, they were just like, it was like they just took the camera, took the script, and took control of everything without even consulting me. And all of a sudden I was like, this was my normal, always. And even trying to bring the question into the bedroom of what do I want, I realized that my whole life I'd kind of been like the garnish on the plate, and somebody else was like controlling the meal or the, you know, everything. So I really had to fight at first to figure out how to include my own sexual voice. So like old partners, sexual partners of mine would have said that masturbation did ruin me, because I was no longer someone who was a doll willing to hand herself over, which was to me just what sex was before. But I then now have a bunch of new lovers who think it's the awesomest thing on earth, because they want someone like, there is nothing sexier than someone who actually wants to have a genuine sexual experience. And when I show up with my own agenda and pleasures I want to experience, my partners are really happy and enthusiastic, and can really trust that I'm there genuinely for my own joy. And that's really contagious, and it's also really beautiful.
Awesome. Wow.
But yeah, anyone who wants me just to play with me as a doll and wants me to shut up, that masturbation did ruin me sexually for them.
Interesting. Any y'all in the gallery have any questions? Tammy, do you have any question? Or Ernst, y'all have a question?
Well, I don't know about masturbation with just your hands, but I know like with a silver bullet, it works really well. And you get a climax at the time.
A what?
A climax.
The silver bullet.
I don't do that kind of stuff. I'm a saint. I'm a Christian. I'm a good Christian man, and a good Christian man don't do that kind of stuff.
You're just here to monitor us tonight,
I'm
correct?
Christian.
Yes,
Okay?
I'm Christian.
I'm sorry, people. I'm a Christian. I don't do that. Never in my life. So I'm just listening.
Okay.
What book of the Bible does it say you can't touch yourself? Tell me that.
Uh-oh.
So Kim's earlier question
My
about
version of the Bible says I can't do that. My version. Because I'm from outer space.
What were you saying, Jupiter?
So that's another myth about masturbation, is that God hates it, or another one is that you only do that if you're so unattractive that you can't find a man to do it for you, that you're a loser if you masturbate. I have had men tell me that. I also realized I had that inside myself. Like the Valentine's Day that I masturbated, which did end up in the book, I was so depressed. I felt like such a loser. Because I had that internalized, but I've also had men just straight up tell me that in the middle as a reaction to my project. And I really didn't feel like a good Christian during the time that I wrote this book, or in the decades coming up to it. I really shut down spiritually because my own dad, who was a preacher, taught me that my sexuality was shameful and that God hated it. So it was really funny, though, for me, the last thing I expected in writing this book, where I began to unconditionally accept myself sexually, the last thing I expected was to have kind of a resurgence of spirituality. But all of a sudden, through this work, I really became convinced that God didn't hate me. And I'm a mom. Like, I really love having had life come through my body, and sex was a big part of that. Like, so the story I was fed as a child really hurt my identity as a woman, as a sexual being. And it really made me believe God hated me, my sexuality, and everything else about me, and really just created me so I could burn to death in a big lake of fire.
Wow.
So, it's been really healing for me to reclaim my sexuality and still find a place to make sense of being a Christian woman. Because I consider myself a Christian woman, though there are a lot of Christians who would not accept that about me, and that's their prerogative. So
did your healing process and making peace with all that, did it increase your intimacy when you are now with somebody else?
Oh yeah. But even before that, just starting to explore kink at all, actually. I thought that the whole having 5 orgasms in a row with a guy was just a fantasy from romance novels. And as soon as I started allowing kink into my bedroom, I was like, oh, I thought this was fiction. I thought this was just like romance novel drivel. And all of a sudden I was having experiences that were beyond what I'd ever thought were physically humanly possible to achieve. Because I had, just kind of the way I'd learned about sex in my life. And also I'd tried so hard to be sexually pure that I tried to have as little experience as possible with as few people as possible, which really deadens your learning curve, right? So I had very little basis on which to know what could be experienced sexually. And I had kind of a short stick sexually until I started getting into kink. And I could never have written this book had I not started toying around with the kink community. And really, I owe such a debt to people who are open and sharing about that.
So let me ask you a question. Would you recommend that your daughter read this book? And I mean, are you this open and feel the same way about, your daughter's sexuality?
What a great question. So before I even really started this book, I had been writing about erotica, and I had a blog where I wrote about sexuality anonymously. And I had written a post about a wet dream I'd had when I was like 15, and I had actually had an orgasm in the middle of the night. And it was kind of like this thing where I was half aware of it in the morning, but I just decided to never think about it again. But it's the only time I can remember being my first time masturbating, and I mostly denied it, and I tried to make sure it never happened again. And I had ridden a pillow in the middle of the night, half asleep, and I'd had, as far as I know, my first orgasm. And I was probably around 15. And after writing that post, I thought, I'm not doing any better with sex ed with my daughter than anyone did with me. So I went over to my daughter's room and I said, okay, I want you to know that it's okay if you masturbate. I had a lot of shame when I was your age. And she looked at me like I was the biggest idiot in the world and such a Neanderthal. And she's like, Mom, everybody knows that. Right? She's growing up in the era of YouTube. She's more interested in gender politics, and she's so forward thinking compared to, and has so much more access to information, right? She's more patronizing of my experiences and maybe feels a little sorry for me that I have all this to work through, because growing up here in Northampton, Massachusetts, she's really surrounded by some of the most progressive thinking in the world when it comes to sexuality. So I really don't have to educate my daughter so much as I needed it myself.
Right, but would you encourage her to read your book? Like, what is that, or is that
Oh,
something that you keep separate?
I would never try to control her reading at all, ever. But she's like, when I told her that there was naked stuff on my computer, she was like, ah! You know, like I think any kid is like, thinks about their parents having sex, and there's that visceral, ew. No, I want to think that the stork brought me. I don't want to think my parents did that.
Yeah,
So,
Tim, you want to
I
read
don't
a
think
book
my daughter
about your
will ever
mom
read the book.
masturbating?
No, what I'm saying, I mean, this is the truth. Like, my kids don't get nothing for Christmas unless they watch my comedy shows. You know what I mean? I will cancel Christmas on their asses.
So for Valentine's Day, I wrote a more kind of humor academic article on the kinds of things we believe make us unworthy of love. So it wasn't sexual content, but my daughter proofread that for me multiple times and gave me feedback. So I do include her in my work in ways that are appropriate.
Is that on Amazon?
That article is on Medium.
Oh,
it's on
okay.
Medium,
Yeah,
and it's called Santa Claus versus Cupid, or Cupid versus Santa Claus. I don't remember which.
Oh, I'd love to read that. Okay, great. Cool.
Oh, yeah. I'll try to make sure you get a link.
Eric Dabrowski is asking about sexual release in regards to increasing your immune system. Any comments?
I don't have the kind of medical or scientific background to really be able to answer that with any authority, other than to just generally say joy is good for your immune system.
That's right.
Right? Self-acceptance is good for your immune system. So
circulation.
Yeah.
Circulation of your energy is good, but you also don't want to waste it, like we were talking about.
Yeah. What
Probably
about the
balance.
doubt? Like what she's talking about, the doubt. Is that are you involved in that at all, or just what
Yeah, so
you're
this
saying?
idea that you can waste energy, I'm not of that school of thinking that stagnating energy is a kind of a state of loss and a missed opportunity, in my opinion. And over expenditure of energy is a state of depletion, right? So what I think is, for me, my interpretation of healthy is when we have a balance of whether, that's a tide going in and out, or a balance of replacement and expenditure. But kind of like the idea of never expending energy actually also kind of creates a problem itself. So that's my personal philosophy on that kind of thinking. So really, it's like, comes back to trusting your body. And that doesn't mean your body is going to be perfectly in tune, right? Our opinions and our social bias can have us judging our body and gets our own appetites out of whack. But I still think trusting your body is the best choice, regardless.
Have you studied Taoism or no?
Only in like comparative religion classes, definitely not in a sexual context. I have taken a few classes on Tantra.
Okay.
I have a question. As an aging person, do you speak to, she laughs. I turned 51 in captivity last week, so I'm very much aware that I'm a senior citizen almost. So
happy birthday! Happy birthday!
You, girl. When is yours? You're in Aries, you said, right? When's your birthday?
April 9th, and I'll be turning 43.
Ooh.
Wow.
Babies,
Look at that.
babies.
So do you talk often to elderly folks or to people who are aging about their sexual ability and masturbation and all that sort of stuff to keep them healthy?
So I have that woman, Jessica Drake, who was on my panel. She actually makes a whole series of fantastic sex ed DVDs, which is so fantastic coming from a porn star, because porn, we just see like the unrealistic cut. We don't see all the prep work and the behind the scenes things or whatnot. And so she has specifically come out as a porn star saying, like, here's all the skills that it takes to have a healthy sex life. And you're not going to learn it by watching my porn, but you can learn it by watching this. And she's I don't know if it's come out yet, but last time I talked to her, she was in the midst of planning to record with a sex educator who focuses on that. And her name is not going to come to my mind, but I'm happy to send you a link, because there are sex educators who specialize in people over 50 or over 60 or whatever. And that's, yeah, it's totally legit. And that's one of the things that I loved about, I got to go to Sex Geek Summer Camp and Catalyst Con and Woodhull Sexual Freedom Conference and kink events and meet all these people who are doing amazing work. And oftentimes it is so much in a niche, because all of our sexuality is really tied to our identity, and it does change over time and different things. So there's resources. If I'm not your sex educator, right? I'm not even really a sex educator, I'm a writer, but there's somebody out there for you, and a Google search or asking around is so worthwhile if you have sexual questions that aren't being answered here now.
Thank you very much. Well, I guess one more round of questions and this night went by so quickly. I don't even know what to say. I just so grateful to you, Jupiter, for being so open and talking to us tonight about all of these things and more.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It's really my pleasure. And thank you, Tim, for doing all this work year after year, putting together events and connecting people. Really means a lot to me to be here with this group tonight.
He doesn't do it alone, goddamn it.
Yeah!
Right.
Love seeing women take credit for the work that they do.
Man, you know how hard, it ain't even about that. You know how hard it is, I gotta put up with them, man. Everybody jump on me. Whether it go right or wrong, it's on Tim.
Right. Well, you're our scapegoat.
I have to admit, I'm a bit of a loner, because I can't stand putting up with people. Like, why am I a writer? Because I like to sit alone by myself with my own thoughts. Putting up with people, no matter who you are and what other people are, it's work.
So this is your time to shine then, right? Because this is, isolation moment, like we're all kind of quarantining. So this must be your moment to shine as a sort of person who likes to be by themselves, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of one of those funny things. I've watched the definition of extrovert shift in the last while. So it used to be an extrovert was someone who got up and dazzled people, and I've always been that kind of extrovert. And then more recently, I started reading like, you're an introvert if being alone is what charges your battery. So for me, I've always been front and center on stage, put sparkles on me, and very successful at that, but it depletes me. So if you got an old school definition of extrovert, I'm so extroverted. But if you talk about what recharges my batteries, it's time alone. So then by that definition, I'm an introvert.
I see. Okay.
By doing this research, right, and obviously a lot of practice, I mean, is there any like physical tips you can give, the women on the panel, or even a man on the panel that's, trying to get to third base or something like that?
Timothy loves
Wait, listen, I'm just trying to get the most out of this interview.
This is a fantastic question. I would have liked to say at the end of the time doing this, which I kind of kept working on the project even past the year, because I still had unanswered questions. And so I really kept filming for a year and a half. And though I limited the book to the first year, I respected the dates of the project, but I have yet to ever tell a man after the project to physically do something differently to match what I did when I was alone, to be like, oh, I learned this thing that or I really like this. And so will you do that to me? I haven't. And I know women who can talk that specifically, but for me, what I have really found is the more buy-in I have in the mentally and emotionally, the better my sexual experience, period. So that's what I focus on. And so I was so disappointed when I finished this book, and at the end of it, I was having a harder time coming than ever, and realizing that that's because I was in the middle of a breakup with the boyfriend I'd gotten, and heartbreak is really big sexual turnoff. I couldn't have orgasms, even though I'd been studying it for a year and a half, because I was too depressed to it was like, it was like twice as much work to get to the same place. So I really realized that working with my present emotions instead of against them was kind of the number one thing for me for sexual success. And so even if I have an emotion that doesn't seem sexy or doesn't seem like it fits in, honoring that and being honest about it even in a sexual situation, tends to lead to orgasms that are there at the right time, not because I thought they should be, but because they're naturally occurring and ready to spring forth. Exciting. All right, there you go.
I love
Great.
that. I love
Great.
that. Sometimes
sorry.
it seems like sexual advice is just going to be like, you need to like more, you need to have more. And
That's my advice for boning.
Shut the fuck up.
And with that, we're closing it.
Unless you're seeing where you're at.
He's
it's
always
just-
trying to control my vagina, goddammit. I'll do what the fuck I want to do.
Oh my God, I got to go to bed. All right, 7 p.m. tonight. I want to thank everybody who joined us this evening. My sister Deborah left, but thank you so much, Joe and Ashley and Carmen and Ernst and Tammy and Denise and Timothy and Lauren and Kim and Jupiter. Thank you so much. We'll see you again on Sunday night, 6 p.m. Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Any U.S. citizen returning to the United States will be subject to up to 14 days of mandatory quarantine.
We got that vaccine, third eye clean, we Visine. Dancing off the top rope, we Dougie off them high beams. Running hard like track meets, debutantes in back seats. Niacin for player P, my piss test with 5. Double parks on planet Mars, they surf the net, we surf the stars. Quarantine in Zanzibar, breathing on the masses. Paper like